So, it's your first con and you want to know what to do. I've been tabling at conventions for the past year, and oh boy, there are a lot of things that I wish I would have known when I first started. So in this video, I'm going to share some advice and offer my perspective on things that I wish someone had told me before I started tabling. But first, hi, I'm Kiwi Kana, and welcome to, or welcome back to my channel. Sorry if my voice is a little hoarse in this one. There's a lot of audio to record, and I was at AwesomeCon last weekend and a PolyCon this past weekend, so there's been a lot of talking and screaming. So bear with me. So first things first, how do you find conventions? Pretty much all of the ones that I've tabled at have been local, and I've found them either online, on social media, or there's also this page that catalogs a bunch of the cons that happen worldwide, fan cons. So I just scroll through and check and see if there are any ones that are in my price range and are easy to travel to, and I apply that way. What you're going to need for the application is going to vary from con to con, but you're usually going to have some sort of pretty solid portfolio. You'll probably have to write a kind of artist statement. You'll need to link your social media. So it's important to have an Instagram or TikTok or something that showcases your work already set up. Most of the time they ask for Instagram. You'll also need a general idea of the sort of things that you'll be selling, because the applications usually request that you fill that out when you apply. Also, just be aware that you're probably going to have to fill out some tax forms, sales tax and income tax, all of those things. Those rules are going to vary from con to con about what they're going to need up front, and also from the state or district if you're in the US. So just make sure that you're communicating with the con and you know what forms you actually have to fill out. It can be a little confusing, and you want to make sure you're doing everything right in that sense. Okay. I should also mention in the application section of this video that sometimes these cons prioritize local artists. And that makes sense because they want to support their own community. So if you apply to a convention that's a little bit further away and you're not sure why you didn't get in, maybe they didn't give you a reason, they might not, it could just be that you're not local. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's say that you've applied to a convention and you got accepted. Woohoo! Now what do you do? I have a list of all of the things that I bring to conventions, so I'll tell you those. You might decide that you want to bring something else or do something differently, but this is what I do. So first off, let's talk about actual product stock. For my first convention, I started out really small. I had some original sketches, I had stickers, I had prints, I had a couple of small comics and a couple of really little things here and there, but it was mostly all stuff that was printed really easily. Something that I can either print on my printer at home, or for my larger prints like 11 by 17, I get those done by Catprint, and I found their prints to be really nicely done, high quality, and they're very responsive and not too expensive, so that's usually what I do. And a quick anecdote about ordering from places like Catprint, a lot of the times their standard sizes are going to be a lot cheaper, so like 11 by 17 is really cheap to make. I have a couple of prints that are kind of oddly sized, like Bakugo and Deku and my Mitsuri print are all not standard sizing. So one thing that I have found makes it a lot cheaper for me is to actually get those printed on 11 by 17 and then just cut them out myself. I have this really large, big guillotine trimmer that lets me cut straight edges. So I definitely recommend getting one of those and doing that if you want to save a little bit of money. As for my stickers, I always make them at home. I'm sure if you want to outsource those, you can. There are probably a lot of great sites. I haven't really explored them myself since I've been printing them out myself. But I print them out on sticker paper and then put a vinyl coating on top so that they're waterproof and feel a little higher quality. And then I cut them out on my Cricut. Again, if you don't have a Cricut, you can just use scissors for this. I find that the Cricut is more professional looking, but if it's a small local con or your first convention, you just want to see if stickers are something that you could sell, there's nothing wrong with just cutting them out using scissors. The Cricut is definitely an investment and it's kind of annoying to use. Don't get me wrong, I do love it. It's very helpful, but it can also be such a hassle sometimes. So I would totally recommend maybe not investing in that right away. For AwesomeCon, since I was doing the little dragon series that you may have seen in this video and in previous videos, I wanted to do little mugs and tote bags with the dragons as well, just to see how they would do. These are definitely more expensive to make, so I wanted to see if they would be worth it and thought that this convention would be a good chance to find that out. I only ordered a couple of them, and that's something that I also recommend. If you don't know how an item is going to do, or if it's a little more expensive, you can just get 4 or 5 of them and see how they sell. If they sell really well, then you know it's probably something you should invest in, and if they don't sell at all, then you haven't lost that much money. At this convention, my tote bags actually did really well. I sold out of one of them completely and sold quite a few of the other. My mugs didn't do as well. I did sell a few of them, but I don't know how they would do long term. I'll probably bring them to another convention just to see how they would sell there. The market is obviously different from convention to convention, so an item that didn't sell well at one might sell better at another, and it's good to get all of that data before making a decision. We'll see. So for those, let's say, riskier items, I obviously said start out with maybe 4 or 5. For things like prints and stickers, a really good number for how many of each print you should have is 10 to 15. That's going to be a really safe number. You probably won't sell all of those. That's totally normal. But that's the number that I've heard a lot just starting out and what's worked for me, so I would recommend going with something like that. Okay, when you're making all of these purchases, when you're buying materials and supplies and all of the things that you're going to have to set up your booth, please, 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 you keep really detailed receipts. That's going to be really important for all of your accounting later, and if you're really diligent about it, it's going to be so much easier early on. Remember that this is a business. You do have to do the accounting. Okay, so you have all the things you're going to sell. Now let's talk about booth setup. What do you need? Again, don't go too crazy at your first convention. You're just dipping your toes into the water. You don't need to get every single super fancy display case and levels on your booth, big signage stands, all of that. It definitely looks nice, but it's really expensive and it's also not necessarily what you need. So the first and most important thing is going to be something to hold up all of your actual art prints or stock and add some height to that table. I use wire cube storage, which is kind of typical for what you'll see at conventions, but some sort of stand is really important. Also, bring something heavy. It could be your print box or any of your stock, if it's particularly heavy, to put on the backs of these storage cubes because they can be a little precarious. I also brought zip ties to zip tie all of the cubes together for the actual convention. I've seen people's stands fall apart during cons before. You don't want that to happen, so any extra reinforcement you can think of is probably a good idea. I also recommend getting a business card holder and printing out some business cards to save money. I print them myself and I don't do them front and back. I only do the front because it saves a lot of time and money. And again, these are business cards. A lot of times people are just going to be throwing them away, so investing in really beautiful ones that are decorated front and back is probably going to be a waste of money, especially early on. So just make sure that all of your social media, all of the contact information you want to have is on that card, and I also include a little QR code on my business cards because it's faster to scan into my Linktree and see all of my links listed really easily. But again, definitely write down your social media as well because some people don't like scanning QR codes or they don't have a phone that can scan QR codes, so it's for the best to have both. I also have a little sticker display, although I'm probably going to have to upgrade that soon because I have a lot more sticker designs than I did at the start. It's a little too small for me now, but that's okay. It's done its job for my first couple of conventions. Also remember signage. I print little signs with all of the prices listed and I set those next to each of the items instead of having them all in one list, just so everything is really easily displayed. There's always just a little bit of confusion with how much things cost, especially if it's not very apparent. People are looking at things very quickly. It's good to have all of that signage right up front and easy to see. Talking about signage, it's also important to have a sign of your name or your Instagram handle, whatever you want to use. For the first couple of cons, I had this really large sign, which I'll show a picture of here, and I do really like that one, but I didn't have as much space at AwesomeCon, so instead I just printed out the letters of my name and put them across the bottom of the booth so I could really economize space, so that's an option to think about too. Now let's talk tablecloths. It is so important to have a black tablecloth. You can use whatever color you want usually, but the standard tablecloth and drapery for conventions is always black. Sometimes conventions will provide them for you, but most of the time you're going to have to bring your own. Definitely do not be caught without this. The last thing you want to do is have a naked table with all of your stuff on it. It just doesn't look good, and a lot of times it's not considered professional and you can get in trouble with the convention. So make sure if you have nothing else, you have that black tablecloth. I did not do this for this show, and it kind of shows, but consider bringing a steamer and steam your tablecloth, because you can see that I have a lot of creases up in here. It's not a huge deal, but it definitely would have looked a lot better if I had steamed out those folds. So consider doing that if you have a really wrinkly tablecloth. I will definitely be bringing one to my next convention. Speaking of tablecloths, it is also standard to have some sort of cloth or drapery to put over top of your display at the end of each day. These cons are somewhere between 2, 3, sometimes 4 days long, and you're going to be leaving your whole display, all of your stock there at the convention. You don't want things to be easily stolen or damaged, so everybody always brings some sort of drapery. I have this like gold plastic tablecloth that's super lightweight, which I really like, that I just put on top of everything, so it's nice and secure. In my setup, I also have these little string lights. I don't think they're necessary, but I do think it's really cute to have just like a little touch of my personality in the display. The last thing I have in my setup, which again is not a requirement, I just have it in mind, so I thought I would share, is this wheel you can spin if you spend $30 or more. It's a lot of fun, and I have gotten a couple people purchase an extra thing just so that they can spin the wheel, but here's the thing, you will get a lot of children running up and asking if they can spin the wheel for free, and it is a little awkward to have to tell them no. I usually just let them spin for fun, but obviously I can't give away all of my free art and stickers. Sometimes I'll give away a free sticker or a piece of candy, but nothing large like a print, so if you don't want to have to deal with that, just be aware that is going to happen if you have a wheel, but it's a fun little thing. Now, there are a couple of things that you definitely need that might not be on display, but the first one is a square reader. I understand if that's not in the budget. You can definitely just take cash or Venmo or PayPal, but most people are going to pay with credit cards. A lot of people are paying with Apple Pay, so having that square reader where you can accept a credit card or you can accept their Apple Pay through tapping really makes all the difference. I don't think I would ever make my money back if I didn't have this, so it's a really good investment. Also bring a portable charger, because the last thing you want is for your Square or your phone or whatever you're taking payments on to die halfway through the convention, and then you have no outlet and no way to charge it, so definitely have that backup plan. I also always bring a lockbox with me for all of my cash, because I don't want that just laying around out in the open, and also always bring some extra 1s and 5s if you have to make change. Okay, whew, are you still with me? That's pretty much everything I have for my setup, so now let's move on to what to expect when going into setup for your display. Usually you'll have a couple hours before the convention, somewhere between 2 to 4 to set everything up, but it's going to vary from convention to convention. It sounds like a lot of time, but I promise you it's going to go so fast, so you really do need to get there on time. The last thing you want is to still be struggling with setting up your display when doors open. AwesomeCon was a little different. Again, usually at the conventions I've been to, you set up day of, but AwesomeCon is a much bigger convention, so they actually had us loading in the day before, which was so nice because you can set everything up, take a look at your booth, see what you're missing, and actually have some time to make those fixes. Now, it might be tempting, but please don't try to table by yourself, especially not for your first convention. Early on, it might not be feasible to pay somebody to come and help you out, so if you have a friend or family member who is gracious enough to offer their time, definitely take them up on that offer. Not only is it going to be a massive help on actually physically moving everything in and setting up, but also think about if you're manning your booth for really long hours. Sometimes these cons are like 12-hour days. You can't leave it unattended, so if you have to get something to eat or if you have to use the bathroom, you're kind of in a pickle if you're there by yourself. Sometimes at cons, they'll have somebody who can come and watch your booth for you, but that's really not the norm, so you can't, bank on that happening. I'm really fortunate to have my siblings offer their time so they can come and help man my booth with me or just watch it if I have to step away. I usually pay for their lunch while they're helping or pay for parking and sometimes offer free art if they have any that they want as a thank you. So definitely have somebody there if you can. If you absolutely have no one to help you, you can often ask the artist sharing booth space with you on either side to watch your things while you're away. They're going to do that if you ask. That's pretty normal. But again, if you can have somebody there with you, I definitely recommend it. Speaking of other artists, don't just sit at your booth the whole time. Walk around, take your business cards, and exchange stuff with other artists. Follow them on social media, chat about their work, try to network. These are really important connections to be making at a convention like this. You're an artist, you're on the same field, and this is a great opportunity to make friends and meet allies in the art space. And be aware of the other artists around you. Maybe they need a pair of scissors or help setting up their booth. Do that. Offer help. Make those connections, make friends in the industry. This is really, really crucial for your career. And also, it's just the nice thing to do. Also remember, at places like AwesomeCon, these bigger conventions, there are going to be industry professionals there who have been working for 20 plus, 30 plus years in this industry. If you can, chat with them. Ask them for their advice. I talked to two absolutely wonderful professionals who work in comics, and they offered me so much guidance, so much advice, looked at my work, and it really made the experience for me. I feel like I learned a lot, and they were so kind to offer their time in that way. Obviously, don't go up and bother people if they're super busy, but don't be afraid to start these conversations, to ask for advice, and then take it. Take the advice. These people know what they're talking about. Another fun community thing that I like to do at these conventions is art exchanges. A lot of the artists will come by your booth and be like, oh my god, will you exchange a sticker with me? And then you just trade art. Sometimes you'll even trade prints. It's a lot of fun. I've done it at pretty much every convention I've been at, so don't be afraid to ask. Sometimes they might say no, but a lot of the times they're going to exchange a sticker with you, and it's just a really fun way to engage in that community. Okay, now let's talk about actually physically tabling. You wouldn't necessarily think it would be so physically demanding because you're just sitting there for 8 to 12 hours, but you are going to be exhausted, or at least I am. So it's really important to bring a water bottle, bring snacks, and bring a jacket, because a lot of times, at least for me, I get really cold. They're pumping the AC because there are so many people in there and it can get hot. So having layers that you can put on and take off is going to be imperative to your comfort. Okay, so you've got your display set up, you're all ready, you've networked, you've done all of the right things, and now you're actually taking payments, talking to customers, sitting there, tabling. What's next? Well, hopefully you have a good experience, you're able to make a lot of sales or at least break even. Honestly, breaking even is a really big success for your first time, so if that's what happens, don't feel discouraged. But what do you do if you don't make your money back, or if you don't get a lot of sales? I know it'll probably be hard, but if that does happen, try not to get too down on yourself and don't write off conventions forever. Some conventions you're going to do better at, and some conventions are going to be a wash. That's just how it works, and the art that you're making is never going to catch everyone's eye in every demographic all the time. So it's kind of a guessing game on which conventions are going to work for you, and which audiences work for you, and which ones don't. That's a part of the experience of being an artist. Part of the job is figuring out what's actually profitable for you. So sometimes the audience just isn't there, and that's okay. That's not your fault. So just know that if that does happen, don't be too discouraged. It's absolutely fine to look at your display and think about the things that you could tweak or improve, or if you think that there are any issues, that's important. Definitely do that. But truly, it could just be the wrong demographic for your work. I mentioned the two industry professionals that I spoke with at AwesomeCon, and they both said the same thing, so take it from them and not from me, because they have so much more experience in this field than I do. They both told me not to worry if I'm not breaking even. Don't worry if I'm not making money right away. It's going to take time. But anyway, that was my con experience. I really loved being at AwesomeCon. I wasn't sure if it would work out for me or not at this bigger convention, but I had a really good experience, and I really hope I get to do it next year. I hope that listening to me ramble on about all of these pieces of advice is helpful, and that if you want to, you take that leap and table at your first convention. I know you can do it. If you have tabled before in the past and you have pieces of advice that you'd like to share, please feel free to leave a comment below with them. That would be absolutely awesome. And if you are considering tabling for the first time, share your experience too, or feel free to ask any questions that I may not have answered. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please consider leaving a like, a comment, or even subscribing. It really makes all of the difference. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.